This is World Builders Ministries, and welcome to my channel. There will be no or very few pictures within, so enjoy the ride. And now let's introduce the cast.
I am Ravilo Toklavsky, the main character of the show, and I'll be the primary narrator of the show as well.
I am Rinslav Takurin, commander of the Imperial Liberation Army's garrison in Ethanopiana.
I am Yileng Yushinki, president of Ethanopiana, but I'm mostly just a figurehead now under Wolcadian occupation.
I am Catherine Toklavsky, cousin of Revelo and a worker in the Sashavitz library.
I am Jean-Pierre Lupo, a member of the Army Nationale, Christus Rex.
I am Sasha Nekos, the now dead grandfather of Ravilo Toklavsky. Before continuing this broadcast, make sure to watch my second channel and that of Micah History. Please carry on the discussion in the comment section, and remember, only comments promoting blasphemy against the Lord will be taken down.
Now, for context. The Federal Republic of Ethanopiana had seen better days. Back in the 2000s, it was a golden land of opportunity and the shining superpower of the Pacific. The world worked. The forces of democracy were the victors, and the good guys who had finally triumphed against the dark and malicious Wolcadians. While the democratic world did eventually show signs of collapse, and the Wolcadians had their authoritarian resurgence, PATO, the Pacific Atlantic Treaty Organization, was easily capable of eliminating them. At least that's the lie that most people were told, as reality paints another color. By 2022, the authoritarian government of Wolkatia faced an ultimatum: democratize or else. The world order had made its call to the Wolcadians, and social progress was expected to be enforced on every aspect of Wolcadian society. This included the forced constitutionalization of the monarch, liberalization of the national religion, and democratic elections with only pro-democracy candidates as options. If the Wolcadian monarch couldn't accept this, he was always free to abdicate the throne and admit that he was a failure to the rest of the world. Of course, this plan didn't work either. With Wolcadia's refusal of the ultimatum, PATO decided to enforce their plans by war. The entire world marched against the Wolcadians, with the advancement of democracy marching on for days on end. Ethanopiana was but a minor player in this global crusade for justice, but even a small star can sometimes shine bright. However, as the war went on, the Ethanopianan people soon realized that what was meant to be a quick and easy victory became an infinite quagmire, a pattern of nothingness whose destiny can truly begin only by securing peace with Wolcadia and the nations happily obliged. For a short while afterwards, the stain of false hope in a shattered world continued. The Ethanopianans tried to regrow their economy and save democracy locally. They established small outposts where their influence could truly expand beyond their borders, growing their own nations and attempting the establishment of republics outside their reach, though they had to abandon these pursuits to focus on the local economy. When the economy failed, various generals within Ethanopiana plotted a coup to rectify the situation at hand. However, while all three of them were united in making that coup, they did not agree on their ultimate destiny for order and peace within the country. A few of these generals were communists, a few of them were fascists, a few of them were Catholic theocrats, and a few of them were communists. While they may have plotted their coups against the nation and agreed in their opposition to the regime, their plan would involve a civil war that would tear the country apart for ages to come. That's why President Yileng Yushinki, despite his commitment to fighting against authoritarianism, requested the People's Kingdom of Wolkatia to militarily occupy Ethanopiana. This is a tale of supreme irony, for in order to preserve democracy within Ethanopiana, one must violate democratic principles by succumbing to a foreign occupation. It's a calm night in the city of Agamo as a couple Wolcadian soldiers from the nightly patrol wander on a routine checkup throughout the neighborhood. The local curfew, once strictly enforced at 8 p.m., has now moved to a much more manageable one, a relatively unenforced curfew between midnight and 5 a.m. Within this city, there's a rather historic neighborhood known for its houses built in a Victorian style, a style not too common since the dominant McMansions that took over the entire country before the war began. That is where I live, nestled among the beautiful trees and not too far from a nearby park. Now one may ask why I even arrived here in the first place. I'm not exactly the easiest type who will just play along with whatever crap is fed to me. And I've always been suspicious of every government. That must translate to me being suspicious of the Wolcodians, right? Well, not really. I don't believe in their cause any more or less than I believed in the previous government before me. But it's not like the nation was all sunshine and peaches before the Wolcodians came and basically destroyed any positive reputation that a Wolcodian would have. Nah, I've become friends with some of the Wolcott soldiers who've arrived here as they've been curious about my intellectual studies and martial arts. Now, I'm enjoying my days in what was called a third property by my grandfather before his death. Although my mother called it an outhouse, it's a rather modest suburban dwelling with some old artifacts. I chose this house for my inheritance because it reflects well the person I've chosen to become and represents the most ancient and primal of my desires. Because I never sought material possessions in my life, my grandfather gave me the lion's share of the inheritance. Despite being the senator of such an insane nation, he truly was a good man. And believe me when I say that this compliment has nothing to do with the inheritance he gave me. Rather, it's due to the love he showed me and the way he stuck up for me when no one else was there. Oh, and my full name is Revilo Ivanovich Stojan Idunir Nekos, but just call me Revilo Toklavsky for short. What am I doing at such an ungodly hour? That's what the whole show is about. My family is rich on my mother's side, but very poor on my father's side, except for one thing. I've been looking through the library of the house for ages, and have finally found a document that could be the key to answering my family's history. If I'm able to find out the truth about my family, this will be a revolutionary achievement in my life. Soon, I'll be able to learn the true reason behind my family's complex and controversial history, and more importantly, the true reason why my mother was always apprehensive about my connection with my father. Thus, I walked down the stairs and approached the dark basement of my house, left abandoned, except for the occasional parties I held with several Wolcottian soldiers. It was stark and simple, with only a storage for some fine wine and a wall filled with books. Little does one know that by reading some of the books in this wall, a hidden passcode could be unlocked for a small safe to see the ancient items of my father's side in my family. I'm lucky to have a strong affinity for reading and a keen eye for small text, as I found the passcode labeled in every single book at the top of the library. What was the passcode? The words Zalatna Satara or Golden Star in Neoskian? There I found a place that seemed to be sterile at first. A list of telephone numbers, names, and documents. A heap of shit in what I expected to be the final realization of something glorious, noble, and pure. However, there was one passage that he wrote in English. He spoke of what was going on in Neoskia, of wars and rumors of wars, and how entire nations have collapsed. However, I did not stop looking through the visage, and as I walked through the room, I managed to find an old document written in Russian by my grandfather in almost illegible handwriting.
The winds of change still grow underneath the quiet moon of nothingness, and while the tree may not grow its leaves again, one cannot chop it down. The Empire's once glorious palaces now lie in the dirt of a new dawn, but the glistening star is a sterile white rather than a happy yellow. The hidden light atop Mount Sinai, the sundered sun above the wide ocean's maw, and the gaping thorn of thousands of dragons remains unknown. But the truth, the solid pursuit of greatness and the worship of God, remains heroically in this frozen world.
This motivated me to look further through the sterile environment, finding something hidden once more within its golden light. Shifting further into the room, I realized exactly how far down this went, and as I searched further and further through the endless heaps of documents I received, I came to a simple conclusion. The only way for me to find out what's really going on is for me to reach the city of Tartan in the south of my glorious country. That task is easier said than done, as I'd have to pass through a variety of territories and gain enough signatures of approval to finally get the job done and pass into the new city. The Wolcodians here in Agamo are my friends, but that's because Agamo's a city that lacks rebellion. But first, I must learn what to look for in Tartan, and I can only find it at the local Sashavitz library. To the north of Agamo, just a small train ride away from the city, Ethnopiana's glistening capital of minority stands tall as a powerful city. However, it is within a minor district, one that is only busy due to the presence of its government, in which we continue our tale. In the center of this district, there is a grand yet modest building known as the Presidential Sphere. This sphere has been the symbol of the Ethiopian state for hundreds of years, one designed to firmly kick out any type of monarchist sentiment within the nation. This building would usually be bustling with all sorts of bureaucrats, senators, and other politicians. Now it is still bustling, but the mood within this building is much different. Rather than the typical blue designs used by the Ethiopians long ago, the green flag of Wolkatia stands tall and proud within its central room, the Great Circle. There, two people sit, both equal opposites, carriers of a destiny both foretold and untold by the Ethiopian people. The first man is Yileng Yushinki, the former president of Ethiopiana. He was in charge of the fight against Wolkatia, the eventual peace, and the dilapidated state his country fell into after the war, and it was his decision to give Ethiopiana to Wolkatian occupation. The man is somewhat overweight, but not overly so, and his slouched and defeated posture gives way to his soft and diplomatic voice. The other man is Rinslav Takarin, commander of the Imperial Liberation Army's garrison in Ethiopiana and head of the Wolkatian occupation. He is the exact opposite of Yushinki, a man of strength and resolve. Upon entering the room, one could immediately notice his dominant posture, as a mere glance from him spells trouble for anyone who disagrees with his wishes. Even in his most casual state, he wears his military uniform and keeps it prim and proper at all times. His gray mustache, a clear reminder of the naturally stoic and emotionless state that consumes his mind. It is he who initiates the conversation, and it is his voice who gives the silence a much-needed sound.
President Yushinki, I need to discuss something heavily important and vital for the survival of your country. We've established order here, yes, but we must go beyond our current order. Now I've got a question. What do you know about the region known as the Chanhayan Mountains? I need a local's knowledge.
It's cold, remote, desolate, home to the various indigenous peoples that once ruled over the nation. Establishing order there is tough, and if there are guerrillas, they're hard to take out.
I know that, Yushinki, but I need to know something else.
What?
There's a very specific road between the cities of Agamo and Fargos, and this road has been the checkpoint of the Wolkotian military for a time. A horrible avalanche has occurred on this road. In 75-degree weather, I know full well that there is no accident here. I need a local's advice on what to do about these dastardly conditions.
Well, I don't know. The mountains are tall, the weather is cold, and the forests hide many within their reach. If you want to be forceful, I'd suggest interrogation ought to be your primary technique. But I don't know. I'm just here to give information now.
I can see that, Mr. President. I want you to deliver an address to these villages on national television, telling them that the Wolkotians will be coming to protect them in case of further rebellion. We cannot trust them with weapons, but if they wish to use their weapons in our service, they are welcome to do so.
But isn't this too harsh?
If I were to be harsh, I'd close the road immediately and have my entire army show up. The rebels wouldn't stand a chance. Here I'm sending men to these villages to protect them from whatever threats may emerge, making sure that they have supplies and the capability to live for as long as possible. This is Wolkotian generosity, but we'll be harsh if the villagers don't cooperate or if they show any sign of resistance.
Yushinki sighed another defeated gaze, almost joyful about the destruction going on. Later that day, he wrote another entry in his journal by the decrepit fireside.
My homeland, my country, my everything, so bitterly taken from me by my own hands. Why must I live through this monstrosity any longer? The monstrosity of a dream one cannot achieve.
Meanwhile, I walked into the local library to find anything about my old familial life. My cousin Catherine sits on the front desk as I excitedly exclaimed, "Nice, you've got your first job."
Yeah, I did. I like being around books. Tons of stuff to read, you know?
I want to read a book on Neo-Skian history. You got that for me?
Basically, you want to find a way to contact your father?
Yeah, I've got to find some sort of artifact out in Tartan. Can you help me?
You know, I've always liked your dad. I don't know about him now, but he wasn't the good-for-nothing dipshit that most people think of him. Anyways, don't even waste your time on some novel. I've got a manual of Tartan for you to look at. It's got the Nekaz house there as a tourist attraction. If you can't find anything there, you're really out of luck.
I said my goodbyes to Catherine and hopped into the car, gaining permission from the local garrison to leave town and head down to Tartan. I debated on what road to choose, but of course, I chose the road to Fargosin. That, of course, was the wrong decision. Several hours after my library visit, while I was well on the way to Fargosin, Yushinki made an address on national television.
People of the villages of Flowville, Treville, Saltovograd, Dratska, and Greenville, small mountain communities alongside the road between Fargosin and Agamo, I bring to you this announcement. The soldiers of Wolkadia will double their patrol alongside the Agamo-Fargosin Friendship Road and establish small garrisons within nearby communities. Additionally, the bullet trains between major and minor destinations will be completely shut down and monitored by the Ethiopian and armed forces. All hail Ethiopiana.
I couldn't help but notice the depressing nature of the president's voice. He once spoke so bombastically and optimistically about the fate of the country, but today he even forgot to recite the national motto. This is a bad look for the Wolkadians, but I can't really blame him. He's a man who has seen his nation go from the dominant superpower of the Pacific to a third world nation occupied by the Wolkadian military. What's more is that this is entirely his fault. He seems like a good man, but he's been a terrible ruler. I don't even know why the Wolkadians decided to have him stay as the figurehead, but then again, I know exactly what they're doing by this. The road was safe for the first hour and a half, but once I entered the mountains, everything turned strange. The main road was closed off by Wolkadian soldiers who demanded I sign a couple of documents. The screening seemed way longer than it took, as some of the Wolkadian officers had a knack for making a 15-minute stop feel like 20 years. Once it was finally over, I managed to finally drive out of the checkpoint and continue along my journey through a long and winding road that seemed to lead to the middle of nowhere. Man, my nation sure knows how to build great cars for cheap, but that's worth nothing if they can't make a road that's worth a fuck. Soon, I grew more and more complacent in my drive and security, trying to take shortcuts whenever possible until I heard a loud bump and saw a powerful soldier sticking out. Unlike the green-colored uniforms of the Wolkadians, this man was wearing pure white.
You are speaking to Jean-Pierre Lupeau of the Armée Nationale. Leave this car, lest you wish to die in a state of perdition. Viva Christus Rex!
I considered shooting at him, but as I realized he had some comrades, I realized I had no choice but to surrender.
Next episode, my grandson shall deal with the perils of captivity under the Armée Nationale, while the Wolkotians try to restore order. Great battles shall unfold, but until next time, this has been the Broken Hearth. The Lord is the divine source of creation. He who is beyond all is beyond all, the honored, blessed, and great, most powerful, most beautiful, most righteous, and most loving. Amen.